if a client is looking to have a building built, okay, so they're out looking at land, when
Right.
should they bring you guys in?
Usually when they first start trying to select a site, or I shouldn't say, I mean, we can help with the actual site selection and looking for that, but generally they know where they want to be.
Mhm.
And once a client has narrowed it down to a few sites that they really want to look at, that's a great place to get us involved, because then we'll start looking at the parcel maps and pulling information, pulling deeper zoning information, checking for easements. If they're really serious and once they do select a site, then we also recommend getting a surveyor on board pretty immediately to determine anything else that may not be there, or like may not be obvious, I should say. Um, and then lastly, another thing that we always ask for is to review the title report. Um, and although sometimes clients know and sometimes they don't, we've run into situations where people may have something like a cell tower lease on their property, and the people doing the site selection are not in touch with the people that know there's a lease on the land. And so we usually ask to go out to the site and take a look around for anything notable that may stand out to us. Like we may see um, different flags for a gas pipeline. I mean, that would come up in the easement, or we may see something in the street that tells us, hey, there's something going on here that we need to look into, or overhead lines and the easement doesn't show up on the parcel map. So we kind of do deep dive research to make sure they're not going to have any reason that they can't build what they think they're going to build. Another example is in Truckee. We had a site we were looking at, and when we saw the area that was cut out of the parcel to be set aside for, I guess it was a wetlands area, so it was like protected, even though the owner owned the land.
Right.
They couldn't use about 60% of their site, and we did a deep dive on the zoning, and we still had to have a setback from that so they could park, up to what was in the setback, but then the building face itself needed to be an additional, I think it was 50 feet back. So when you chop it all up, it was really just an unbuildable site. Or in
That's
Laguna
pretty
Beach,
common. Yeah.
yeah, one more example is in Laguna Beach. We had a client who was looking at purchasing land. He was a repeat client. And he said, hey, can you look at the site for me real quick? I'm thinking of looking at this. And I said, hey, this isn't buildable because in Laguna Beach, if the slope of the site is over 45%, which is pretty darn steep, you're not allowed to build on it. And that's in their municipal code. So I wouldn't pursue it. And he was like, oh, thanks. I knew there'd be a good amount of structural to build on the side of the hill, but I didn't know that that was going to be outright denied. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay, you just saved me a good amount of looking into this and getting that rolling. So there's a lot of weird things where we look at it and it's red flags to us.
Mm.
But to anybody who's not normally looking at parcels, it's going to, and how to build on each one, they're not going to stand out to that person, right?